When we bought the house in 2003, we felt that the right thing for it was to become a high-quality holiday cottage. So at that point, in about the 3 years after that, we completely renovated the entire building. We added a small extension at the front to provide an extra bathroom and a proper utility room. And we decided eventually to let it through Unique Cottages. And it's since turned out to be extremely popular 12 months of the year.
And its historical significance is quite important, isn't it?
Yes. So after the Napoleonic Wars, the Parliament in London decided that in recognition of the enormous service to the British military given by the Highlanders of Scotland, that there ought to be some recognition of that, and the decision was made to build a series of churches across the Northern Highlands of Scotland in places where services had previously had to be held outside because there were no churches. And Thomas Telford was commissioned to design a standard church and 2 or 3 standard manses that would be built in each of these locations. This was quite early in Thomas Telford's career. Of course, he went on to be extremely famous for building canals, roads, bridges, all across the UK. But this was one of his early projects, and the fantastic thing about Croick Church, which is just 500 yards away from the Manse, is that it still stands today inside and outside more or less exactly as Telford designed and built it. And the Manse, while it's been changed in minor ways to make it more suitable for modern living, remains from the outside more or less as Thomas Telford saw it. So the view that you see now behind me is the Manse as it was designed and built.
In terms of the wildlife that is viewable from not only the Manse but around the whole glen, can you just sort of fill me in with some of the animals that people may come across during a stay here?
Surely, be delighted to. Well, first of all, of course, we're a working farm, so there are sheep and cattle on the farm, roaming freely in the glen, and everyone can see those. As with every part of Scotland, we've got a population of deer here, but we're fairly unusual in that there is the prospect of seeing 4 different sorts of deer in the glen. Obviously there are the iconic Scottish red deer, the Scottish roe deer as well, but also we have sika deer here and fallow deer. The sika deer, originally from China and Manchuria, were brought over to Scotland in the Victorian era, and originally to be kept in parks, but as usually happens, of course, over time they escaped, naturalised, and now they're essentially an indigenous species in this part of Scotland. The fallow deer came here rather more recently. Our predecessor owners brought a small number of fallow deer here, and you'll still see a herd of deer in the strath. Then in addition, of course, you have red squirrels here, pine martens, most of the species, otters, most of the species you'd expect to find in here. And we have a wonderful array of bird life. You and I have been listening to the cuckoo, which is pretty insistent at this time of the year, but we have all the major raptors can be seen in the strath from time to time. Sea eagles, golden eagles, buzzards, kites are all, an occasional osprey are all occasionally seen here. We have a lot of ground nesting birds, lapwing and curlew in particular, and obviously, you know, a wide variety of smaller species, grass snakes, adders, lizards, and the like. Really, for someone who's interested in wildlife, this is a fantastic place to come and gorge yourself with them.
The one key thing is probably about the location of the manse is the fact that it is at the end of a road, and once you go past the manse, you are essentially really wild country.
Yes, that's absolutely right. As you say, we're at the end of the road, almost equidistant on the map between Dornoch on the east coast and Ullapool on the west coast. Beyond the manse, there's a track which people walk and cycle up, and in fact you can walk and cycle right the way through to Ullapool if you so desire. Obviously, it's in Scotland we have the right to roam, so everyone can walk freely on the track and indeed off the track as much as they like, and you can walk 7 or 8 miles on our own ground and then through a gate and into the next estate as well.
As well as the manse, you've also got another little sort of holiday let.
Yes.
Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Certainly. So in the about 100 years ago, the Church of Scotland decided that the main Croick church was a little bit too big and too remote for services, particularly during the winter. So they built a what we call a tin tabernacle, and about 10 years ago they decided that was then surplus to requirements. We bought it off the church, took it apart and rebuilt it, renovated it, and turned it into a cottage, which really is for a couple. It's only for a couple, but people seem to love it. It's right in the middle of the woods. The red squirrels are a constant presence on the outside, and it's a very cosy place to spend a few nights.
So walking on the Croick Estate has been a very enjoyable experience this morning. We've spotted loads of deer of all descriptions. There's quite a number of different deer that are living in the Highlands, in this area of the Highlands of Scotland. We've seen a golden eagle in flight. There are endless amounts of house martins swooping up and down this river, searching for insects and I suppose also the mud they require to build their nests with. But there is much more bird song to be heard in the glen, and the cuckoos are very, very noisy, and they literally start first thing in the morning.